Hello everyone and welcome back to another Marvel Champions video. Today I picked up at my local game store the Scarlet Witch pack from Marvel Champions, out just in time for the finale of WandaVision. So we're going to go ahead and get this open. I actually opened it in the store just to make sure that the actual hero card was there. Ever since Ant-Man, I've kind of like opened it just to make sure that the card was there, because when I bought Ant-Man, my deck was missing Ant-Man. But Scarlet Witch here, we're going to go ahead and get it open. I'm going to take a look at the cards. I'm then going to take it, play a game with it, and then going to come back later in this video and let you know what I think of the deck, at least the basic kind of default build, and then what I think of the character and how the cards work and all that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and get this cracked open. So there's that. Here is our Scarlet Witch poster that you get. It's a poster and like a little rules reference, but there's the Scarlet Witch poster. And I guess there's any new mechanics in here. So Team Up is a mechanic. It's been out since, I believe, since Ant-Man. Ant-Man has it, Wasp has it. Scarlet Witch will have it with Quicksilver. Team Up, so we've dealt with Team Up before, where basically Team Up keyword names two characters to include a card with the Team Up keyword in your deck. Your chosen identity must match one of the named characters. Additionally, a card with the Team Up keyword cannot be played unless both of the named characters, hero or ally, are in play. Alright, cool. I'll do that. There's some rules clarifications on. So it says question of Scarlet Witch's Chaos Control ability. Enter Scarlet Witch's Crest upgrade. Count boost icons. What does it mean to count boost icons? I think we know what this is, but let's see. Boost icons are counted whenever a game step or card ability determines the exact number of boost icons on an encounter card. So Scarlet Witch, her whole deck, a lot of her stuff is dealt with mostly messing with the encounter deck. Like you basically are counting cards off, or counting the boost icons on there, and then doing something based on whatever card you're playing. So there's cards that'll say like deal damage based on the number of boost icons shown in a card. Like you cancel the card and then do something with those boost icons. The problem is that makes it so you're going to be running through the encounter deck potentially faster than you normally would, which means you might end up getting some additional acceleration tokens on the plot. But we're just going to take a look at some of the basic cards here, and then I'm going to get the camera flipped around, and I'm going to sleeve this up, and I'm going to play a game, again, probably against Rhino, because that's always kind of like my default test is against him. And then I'll let you know what I think of the character, what I think of the deck. I think she's going to be a little bit more tricky to play than some. So here is our Alter Ego card. There's Wanda Maximoff. If it wants to focus. There we go. So there's Wanda. 3 recovery. Has this super power siblings action. Discard 2 cards from your hand to draw 2, or draw 3 instead if Petro Maximoff is in play. Quicksilver's or Petro's side is basically the same thing. And then we have Scarlet Witch's hero side here. So she has 2 thwart, 1 attack, 2 defense. She's an Avenger and a Mystic, and then has Chaos Control. It's an interrupt. So when boost icons on an encounter card would be counted, discard the top card of the encounter deck and count the number of boost icons on that card instead. So let me do this again. When boost cards on an encounter card will be counted, like there's cards that say like count the number of boost icons and do something. It sounds like you can basically discard. Let me see. Discard the top card of the encounter deck and use that card instead. So if you flip over a card that has 2 boost icons, you can then discard the top card of the encounter deck and count those icons instead. Hopefully there's more icons on the next card. So, and there is the ally version of Quicksilver. And I've been really enjoying Quicksilver. I've been running an aggression build with him. And he can be incredibly devastating with cards that increase his attack, cards that will say like during like this basic attack from this action. I think it's called Skilled Strike. It's a 0 cost, makes your basic attack, at least that first one, do like additional damage. Then we have Chaos Magic there. And then the final card we're going to look at for this part of the video is going to be Hexbolt. So Hexbolt is a, 2-cost event. It's a spell and superpower. Hero action, discard the top 3 cards of the encounter deck. For each card discarded this way that has boost icons equal to 0, deal 2 damage to an enemy. 1, remove two threat from a scheme. 2 is draw a card, and 3 or more is place a status card on the character. So you're discarding 3 cards, and it looks like you're going to be getting multiple effects here. So because it says for each card, do these. So like if you discard 3 cards that are zeros, you're going to be doing damage. If you discard a bunch of cards, it seems like it's going to be very, very functional. It's very flexible too, kind of based on whatever you discard. So you're kind of at the will or the whim of the encounter deck and what boost icons are in there. But there is 4 copies of that in the deck here. And it looks like, yeah, so it looks like Scarlet Witch is a Justice deck, so a yellow deck here. And then, of course, though, we do get cards in here that will work in any deck. So there's some aggression cards, some leadership, and some protection cards, and then some basic cards. But that's going to do it for this part of the video. I'm going to go sleeve this deck up, going to test it against Rhino, then I'm going to come back and let you know what I think of it. We'll be right back with that. Alright, and we are back after my first kind of test game against Rhino. I won, but just barely. So I basically didn't almost lose by taking enough damage, but I almost, I had 6 threat points on the scheme when it goes off at 7. So almost lost with that. 2 really strong cards in the deck, or probably the strongest card in the deck, in at least my opinion, is Molecular Decay. I had this go off for, I believe, 8 damage one time, like 7 damage another time, and then 9 damage in one use. So it's 3 resources, it's an event, it's an attack and a spell. So deal 5 damage to an enemy, discard the top 2 cards of the counter deck. For each boost icon discarded this way, deal 1 additional damage to that enemy. So I believe you're adding up boost icons, and the really good thing with Scarlet Witch is her Chaos Control ability. So Chaos Control is when boost icons on an encounter card will be counted, discard the top card of the encounter deck and count the number of boost icons on that card instead. So if you use Molecular Decay, and you get a encounter card with no boost icons or 1, you can discard discard the top card instead and count those symbols. So if you get 1, you might get a 0, but if you have a 0, you have a better chance of getting something else on a different discard. The thing here, though, is Scarlet Witch has 2 obligation cards in her deck. They're the same card, but since you're going through the encounter deck faster, you have a better chance of triggering her obligation card. So it's kind of like you're like a risk versus a reward situation. Feels very thematic to kind of her abilities, but Chaos Control of anything that you use when you're counting cards or boost icons can be manipulated with this, because it is, when boost icons are counted, discard the top card of the deck and use that new card instead. So one turn I was able to get this to go off for 9 damage. So it does 5 right off the bat, and then I discarded one turn, discarded a card that had a 2, discarded a card that had a 0, used Chaos Control, discarded another card that had a 2, so I was able to do an additional 4 damage. The first time I used it in my first turn, I did 8 damage. So she definitely has these kind of attacks, and things like Hex Bolt can be very bursty, do a lot of damage like very quickly. But her attack is not strong on its own; it's just a 1. So you if you want to use her to actually attack, you want to basically pump up her attack. She can thwart and all that. But my final play of the game was that 9-point Molecular Decay with Hex Bolt to do 2 more damage, and then I attacked with both Scarlet Witch and Wiccan for 1, because Rhino was down to 2 health on phase 2. So swung in for the final 2 damage with Scarlet Witch, swung in for 1 more damage with Wiccan, and won the game. Just barely, though, because like on my next turn, if I didn't thwart that turn, I would have lost due to having an acceleration token, not from running through the encounter deck, because I did have, I'm running the default Rhino build, and that uses Bomb Scare as one of its modular sets. So Bomb Scare comes in, you put 2 threat on it, and you get an acceleration token for the main scheme. So if I went to my next turn without actually thwarting anything, I very likely would have lost just because instead of placing one threat, I would be placing two threat, and then potential cards like having the villain scheme or anything else that adds if I somehow flipped over to Scarlet to the Wanda side and had the villain scheme, I would have lost that way. So I feel she has quite a good bit of potential. She definitely feels like she can. She's going to have to know kind of when to flip and when to stay in hero form. Because at one point I had took an attack, like took 4, went from 10 to 6, and then the villain attacked again with the encounter card. So then I went from I defended then for 2, and I was at like 4 health out of 10. So I ended up flipping to Wanda Maximoff once in the game and recovering. I luckily didn't have the encounter come up. I believe I basically had that get discarded at one point due to some other ability where Wanda's discarding cards off the top of the deck. But she can definitely do a lot of damage very quickly. Her thwart, she has a decent thwart of 2, and since it is a Justice deck, there are a lot of good cards in there for thwarting. There's one called Crisis Averted, which it does cost quite a bit it costs 3 resources, but it allows you to remove 6 threat from a scheme, and then if you pay for that event with a mental resource, you can get around the crisis icon. So the crisis icon is if there's a scheme in play with a crisis icon, you have to deal with that card or that scheme before you can deal with any other scheme. With Crisis Averted, you can actually remove 6 threat from basically a scheme, and if you pay for it with that one resource, you can then do it on a card that doesn't have Crisis on it. So I didn't have any cards that had the Crisis symbol on there, but the Rhino deck does have one. So if I didn't pay for it with that resource, I would have to do all of it, remove all the threat from that scheme instead. So Justice is a very good archetype for her, just because it's a very good way to get rid of threat. Like very good at removing threat from schemes, removing threat from additional schemes. There's one where you remove 2 threat from a scheme, and then I believe if you pay a mental resource, you can remove 2 threat from a scheme after that. So you can remove 2 from one scheme, 2 from another scheme. So that is basically the deck. I'm probably going to go back over the weekend, probably play a couple more games, probably play a game with her and Quicksilver just to see how they pair up. I think it's going to be a very kind of brutal combination, just because right now I'm running an Aggression Quicksilver deck, and with cards like Hexbolt and Molecular Decay in Scarlet Witch's deck, you're going to be dealing a ton of damage between the two of them. But it definitely feels like a very thematic pairing. I think I like this pairing probably maybe a little bit more than Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think this is you could actually build if you build it correctly, build a Justice deck, even the basic deck for Scarlet Witch. Use her as doing damage with things like Hexbolt and Molecular Decay, but then also using her Justice events to thwart while Quicksilver just attacks and attacks and attacks. So that's going to do for this video. Definitely a very fun deck. I would recommend picking it up if you can find it in their stores. It should be out. Yeah, again, it's out today. That's going to do for this video. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching, and take care.